Tell us a little bit about your book.
The book Static was a book I had written some years back, kind of almost as a treatment. Kind of the idea initially we wanted to do a film about it, you know, but really just kind of giving the behind the scenes, backstage, tour bus, hotel room stories of working with, you know, this icon that I was blessed to have come across my path. And, you know, it meant a lot to tell these stories because, you know, I was watching Geraldo, and there was this dude, some guy who I know never met Pac. I never met him, nobody, but he was talking about how he was getting ready to write a book on Tupac, and I'm like, what? So it inspired me right away to go in and go knock one out, because I'm like, you know, to get one from the bodyguard or the limo driver, that shit's cool, but, you know, the people that actually had a hand in making things happen and letting fans and people know the real deal behind stuff, because that's really what it's about, not just people who met him for one night and think they knew him. Because he's a dude like that. You can meet him, he's so real, 15 minutes, you feel like you've known him your whole life. And that's cool, but I spent a year with this cat from 89, actually a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years. But I mean, living with someone. When you live with someone, you know them more than people who meet you casually. And so
you obviously proved to be very prolific, so a day was like a week in somebody else's book.
Exactly, most certainly. But you know, for the most part, this book and Static was a song we recorded for Fourth One Network when I was signed over at Quincy Jones's company. But you know, it primarily talks about the development of him as a person and growing into dealing with this industry. And you know, there were a lot of different things. There were a lot of different stories. There was a lot of. He was a high maintenance cat to work with. You might find yourself trying not to go to jail because he may have started a fight with a waitress or an argument with a waitress at a Waffle House at 4 in the morning somewhere because she brought him a dirty fork. And if he was white, would he have brought a dirty fork? You know, so you'd have to, like, you know, it's like you got to pick your battles, brother. We gotta, you know, we can't. Everything is not that, you know. So he was kind of high strung at times, and you know, but it took older brothers, older, you know, family to reel that shit in and to look out for him and to make sure that he didn't, you know, basically end up into some shit because of just feeling slighted or for whatever reason. He was not to be slighted.
Right, obviously. Now, when did you start seeing the kinks in the armor where DU was going away and where Pac was moving on? Talk about that transition period when you were now forced to go do what your musical calling.
You know, it got to be after a while where you basically saw the things that we discussed and the things that you hear about that are very common where people do start changing with success. We had success very quickly. And with having that quick success, a lot of times you're not prepared for it. So, you know, Shock and, you know, Humpty, he felt as though this was his path and he was always meant to be that with or without anyone. But he had been talented for years and never got over. So it obviously took a team to get over. Me being the musician that I was, I really did want to get where we were kind of the P-Funk of stuff with Digital Underground. I wanted to be more of a very musical group like Earth, Wind & Fire and more musical. And so I went on and got some of my musician friends. I recruited a kid named Dave Hollister, an R&B singer who I met in Japan on our last Digital Underground tour, and or my last Digital Underground tour. And basically recruited him to come in and be in this group. And so we had an R&B group. We signed with Quincy Jones for a big deal. And, you know, I had a song called Spirit, Does Anyone Care? It's in the Boys in the Hood soundtrack and in the movie. And, you know, we went on to do those various different things because my thing, being a jazz artist, is always about pulling up the next people, pulling in new people, and growing the shit. So, you know, with Tupac, you know, I tell the story, you know, of me finger fucking Kyle Lewis at Sparks Steakhouse in New York while she's taking us all to dinner, as I'm gesturing, and her offering up all these different opportunities. And we were drinking all this wine. The bill was like $10,000 or something crazy, and we're drinking. And she said, "Well, there's all kinds of opportunities for you guys. I have a friend, Ernest Dickinson, who's making a film that you might want to come out for tomorrow, and it's an audition." And she invited Money B, and Tupac tagged along. And Tupac would be off to the side when they're giving direction to the other actors about what to do and this, that, and the other, and Tupac would be like, he would be acting out what the direction that they were giving, and Ernest Dickinson would be like, "Who's that guy? Him, over there, who's that?" And he brought him over, and lo and behold, Bishop is born. And, I like to think a little of my handiwork had a hand in getting them to that audition, but nonetheless, Tupac is the star of Juice. So Tupac went from a roadie to a movie star in a year, or less than a year. That's how hot he is, or was, as it pertains to being what he was. I mean, this guy was no joke.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Now talk about the ongoing legacy of Digital Underground. Obviously, there's a new chapter being born.
Sure.
Talk about what is the future.
It's the 25th anniversary of Sex Packets, a groundbreaking record, and from a groundbreaking group. And within celebrating that 25th anniversary, I'm kind of like one of the cats who, I was a father when I had children, a pair of twins. As a matter of fact, I met Shock with my twins. That was their first outing, was we went to Music Unlimited when I bought that equipment. And as life would have it, my son, So Too, Son of the Underground, has produced Sex Packets 2, the sequel, which we just released the first single, Freaks of the Industry. We remade that. It's up on iTunes now. You can go get it. And the real deal is that we're celebrating that 25th anniversary with Digital Underground Next Generation. And we're celebrating it with a film that celebrates and chronicles a lot of the band's touring and things of that nature, with Abdul Malik Abbott, director, filmmaker, king of videos, music videos, from Jay-Z to, I don't know, to everyone. I mean, all kinds of people. This guy has a real rich history himself over the last 20 plus years of doing a lot of great art. And so we worked together before on a Big Brother Soul project, which is something that I done Force One Network. And we worked together those years back, and I gave Abdul a call, and he was gracious enough to come on board and do this film, because he saw how important it was. And it's an important piece, because I was very instrumental in making that group happen, and I thought it was very instrumental. I felt it was very important to celebrate that kind of success. I mean, the Humpty Dance is one of the top 5 fastest selling songs in the history of the music business. I think it's White Christmas, We Are the World, Tone Loc's Wild Thing, and Humpty Dance, I think, are like the fastest selling songs to go platinum. Something like that. And so it's very, very important to chronicle this stuff. And Money B is on board. He's in the film. Shock G's in the film. He interviewed for the film. And we kind of kept it to that. I mean, we have Moses Ettenborough from the producer of the OMTV Rap Show, as well as a couple of other folks that were very instrumental in making this situation happen. Not a bunch of other celebrity folks who were just, not that. We might create the Golden Deluxe Edition later, but this piece is really kind of trying to keep it to the people who were instrumental in launching Digital Underground, as well as launching the career of Tupac Shakur. But because it also celebrates the birth of the career of Tupac Shakur, which is his 25th anniversary in the business. Yo, this is CHOPMASTER Jay, and I'm sitting here with my man Abdul Malik Abbott, film director extraordinaire.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your background, how you got involved in music and video and film.
My background comes from film school in New York, School of Visual Arts. Big shout out to School of Visual Arts. Went to music and art in New York as well. Kind of grew up with a lot of the hip hop icons now, like Slick Rick and Dana Dane, all my graduating class. And I was always connected to the music. And when I graduated from school, started working on music videos as a playback person who played back the song. So I was always connected to the music. And basically I started to edit, and then eventually started to direct. So it was a long journey between the sound to editing to directing. But that's basically how I got started. And the first music video I did was for a group called Too Many, which is a group that Will Smith was producing out of Philly. 3 young cats. One of them kind of went his own way and became a big music industry person. His name is Troy Carter. He ended up being a manager for Lady Gaga, and discovering a whole lot of people. He's like,
And he was a childhood friend of Will's.
yeah. So my first video I had Will Smith in it, which wasn't a bad thing, and that's how I started basically, and moved on to working with a bunch of independent people, even jazz legends like Abby Lincoln. I did a video for her for Verve Records. Then I did a video for this group called Original Flavor. And on Original Flavor videos where I met this tall, skinny cat named Jay-Z, who was just kind of in the background, just chilling, and I kind of remembered him because he wanted to buy champagne in the bar we were shooting at, but the bar was closed and they wouldn't let him buy it. So that was my first introduction to him. And went on to work with a lot of different people, Killer Priest, Digging the Crates guys, Sadat X, the list goes on and on and on.
And from you, what excited you about hip hop as far as documenting it and creating with those flavors?
Well, I mean, I grew up in hip hop. Basically, I grew up with the MTV Raps, MTV. So it was, it was the music of the youth at the time, and it was the rebel music. So but also, I'm also from New York, so I was into everything. I was into rock. I was into R&B, soul, definitely all the stuff from the '70s, the Isaac Hayes, Barry White, stuff like that.
You kind of felt the trailblazing that was going on. These guys were creating their own world, kind of bucking the system.
And and then as soon as Boogie Down Productions came out and he's cursing on the records, that's when I loved hip hop because they got to curse on
There were
the
no
records.
rules.
Right. So literally give it up to KRS-One for really drawing me in.
Amazing. Well, Chop, talk about how you guys came up with the concept of this movie, how it is, evolved, and where we at today.
Well, as a cat working with Abdul, because Abdul, he's a humble cat. I mean, he's worked also with some of the biggest. Spike Lee. He's worked on a lot of Spike Lee films and projects and things of that nature. And it was quite an honor to be able to pull in someone who is knowledgeable like he is, because he's very knowledgeable. I mean, there's people these days have all kinds of gear, and technology has allowed you to not have to necessarily utilize certain professionals for certain things and all that, but this guy knows how to do it. I can tell you he was the playback guy. He started from the playback guy to the gaffer, the lighter. He does it all. So working with someone like him is kind of like working with a one-man wrecking crew, and he felt as though it was important to do these docs because he's also worked on different things, whether it be BET or TV1, and some of the little biography things that they do, like Unsung and all that. But this film that we did was not to be an unsung episode, was not to be that. It was meant to be more of your concert films that we would have grown up with, whether it be Jimmy Plays Berkeley or Led Zeppelin's Song Remains the Same. It was trying to make a film that kind of documented this great musical accomplishments. And more than anything, Digital Underground stands on its own. But the one thing that will keep Digital Underground relevant for a lot of people is the birth of Tupac Shakur. And the Tupac segments in the film are very compelling and very interesting. And Abdul, being a guy who's on board for the real thing, he just gave me the security of knowing, the comfort of knowing that stuff's going to be quality, it's going to be right, there's going to be no shortcuts. He's very much a professional about doing stuff. Having that East Coast attitude about stuff will be, when you grow up in California, I grew up in the Bay, it's 70 degrees year round. If I don't get it done today, I'll get it done tomorrow. Well, that's not his attitude. His attitude is he come from where, they got to get it done yesterday. So, the two different attitudes would work together to try to pull a piece together, and that's what we've done here, chronicling the best of the past, as much as bringing in some of the current and the future, which is very important to me because Digital Underground, as great as Digital Underground was, and as great as Tupac was and is, they're just kind of a piece of my history, and now You know, Abdul's history is part of my history, and my history just keeps growing. And you know, one of my most greatest contributions, the most greatest blessings I've had is being able to have a son and a kid who wants to carry on the legacy and keep the music going. And you know, that's important to a person, and especially to a man, maybe to a female as well. But to me, it is, in a sense, because it's a rich history. It's rewarding. It's fun. You get to travel the world. You know, maybe somebody else's father or grandfather would, oh yeah, well, I would tell them about, you know, joining the military. You get to see the world and all that. But fuck that. You know, the idea of it is that you can do this music and go all over the world and bring joy to people all over the world. And you know, I'm looking forward to doing that. Did I jump past the Abdul Malik Ahmed segment and into the So Too segment? But you know,
No, it's a passion project. It's from the heart. Tell us what excited you to get involved, and what's your vision for the film?
I mean, basically, he forced me to do it, but no. To me, it's like, I remember when they came out. To be honest with you, so I was actually doing the project as a fan first. I was a fan of his work from the Force One Network project, and you know, his song "It's All Good" is on my top 25 playlist of my iPod, so I still like that track. And it was completely different than Digital Underground, but bottom line was, I always was that person who was like, I wonder what happened to that group. So, you know, with that in mind, I was interested in digging into the history, because I knew no history about them. You know, I knew Tupac was in the group, but to be honest with you, the thing that makes Digital Underground stand out is the song. Especially the Humpty Dance and Do What You Like. Those songs will just always be just like classic hip hop songs. And even this past summer, shooting over at the Baldwin Hills Mall, a concert, the DJ throws on the Humpty Dance and the crowd goes crazy, just right away. Anytime you play the music. So I approached it as a fan of music, a fan of hip hop, and wanting to kind of dig in deep and get these stories, these intimate stories about the band that you might not have heard. Everyone kind of heard about Tupac a little bit, but no one really heard where this group came from. I remember when they came out, because I was working on the Buddy video for De La Soul, and people were talking about, you know, Digital Underground, and we just saw this video, and it was like they had this weird character, and you know, they were kind of cool, and the music was cool, and Shock G was kind of New York swag about him, so it was real confusing at the time. We kind of thought it was a hip hop group from New York, but it actually was a Bay Area group. So they kind of were somewhat bubbling in New York before they really blew up, because also the name made people curious, like what Digital Underground meant.
Yeah, it wasn't like you said the word digital at the time.
Yeah, so everyone was like, "Oh, what's digital all about?" You know, because you know, CDs that came out, but it was not. It's
the beginning of the
popular.
digital era.
There was a lot of debate on like, oh, so it's Digital Underground, so you know they're cold. You know, there was just all this other stuff that was being talked about. But yeah, basically back to the movie, it was just, you know, showing the concert and how wild everything was, and how popular they were, and the stage show that they put on, intercut with just stories. Literally, you don't even have to have celebrities telling the stories, because you got him telling the story, or other people telling the stories, or people affiliated telling stories. And also there's lessons to be learned about the business of it all, of the music business, and politics that go along, and decisions that are being made that affect everybody, from what's happening now to what could happen 20 years from then. So it's definitely one of those movies that you learn something as you watch it.
Yeah, no doubt, and definitely encompasses a lot of stories of, like you said, some of the power brokers that are wielding their power now, from Latifah to Ice Cube to, you know, Chuck D and those folks and others, because we tell the stories of touring with all those folks. So it's very compelling. You know, it's the tour bus, backstage, hotel room, you know, having sex with the monkey hanging from the chandelier stories. I mean, the only kind of stuff that band members can tell, you know, and he captured it great, you know, and edited it and put it all together, and we're really happy with it.
And I mean, there's the nostalgic part of it, but also you capturing a point in time. You know, the
Exactly.
birth of hip hop, the Yo MTV raps,
The
those
wave your hands
package
in the
tours.
air and party like you just don't care.
You know,
aspect
some of those
hip-hop.
artists are no longer around, or they're certainly not doing that music anymore. And
Sure.
the culture with the music conferences we were talking about, and the record stores everywhere, and all that, so much has changed. So you're really paying tribute to an era.
One of the last golden eras of hip hop, pre-Chronic, and you know, and that is very important. It was before it went completely corporate, you know, and when it was still kind of a 12-inch art form. I mean, hip hop was meant really to be a 12-inch in single art form. It never really, I don't think, was meant to be an album art form. Very few rap albums do I love. I love a lot of songs and singles, you know, but I mean, I don't know how many great albums you can name beyond, you know, Nas, Illmatic, and Low End Theory, Tribe Called Quest,
Favorite
you know,
Black Planet.
you know, right, Straight Outta Compton,
Right.
you know.
You keep going.
Well, I mean, but you know, there's only so
still.
many. Not for all the people.
Yeah.
For all the people that.
Maybe
for all,
a dozen or two. You
Yeah,
know?
for all the records that were made, there's only, you know, like you said, maybe a couple dozen.
Oh,
that
the
are great.
thousands a year that were coming out.
Right,
I
exactly.
got you.
You know, yeah.
Far less than 1%.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
amazing. So, what do you hope people, you know, get out of this movie that didn't know the band, that weren't even around at that point?
You know that for the most part, the role, because it's very trippy to be a part of someone like a Tupac, who's this iconic figure, and it's kind of like, you know, if I equated this with being out with Martin Luther King or something back in the day, you know, I may not be Andrew Young, but maybe I'm Reverend Abernathy, or so I'm one of the cats that was around the situation, and you want to make sure that you at least make your claim and tell the stories as it were, because too many times these stories are told, you know, about us from other people, but not from us, and that's what I felt was most important.
I mean, looking back on it, knowing how passionate Tupac was, burning the candle at both ends, did you foresee him, you know, having a short life? Did you see something possibly imploding that
You know, we tell
eventually
the
happened?
stories in the film, but there are several things that he would have said back then that seemed prophetic that we couldn't tell at the time. We just thought he was a hothead tripping or this, that, and the other. I can remember telling him one time about something that he had done, some action where he wanted to beat up Big Daddy Kane's sound man because he didn't know enough to not hold the mic into the monitor where it was feeding back, so he thought that they were sabotaging our show, so he wanted to beat up the sound man, and we got him back on the tour bus. We were like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Big Daddy Kane was nice enough to donate his sound man to the tour. So for everybody, we were on the Big Daddy Kane tour with like Third Base, Latifah, the Afros, people like that, Kwame. So we're on tour with these folks, and he wants to beat up the sound man. Well, look, man, you acting like this world owe you something, man. Ain't nobody fucking owe you nothing. You need to get straight. He said, let me tell you something, Jay. Every black man owes me. I'm like, what the fuck? you know, but lo and behold, some of the things he was saying was kind of true. He also did make claims that he didn't think he was going to live past 25. We have great stories in the film that tell you some of the things that he did say, and he felt as though he wasn't going to make it. You know,
You would rather live a full life than worry about dying slowly.
period. You know, and making his name and his. You know, I've grown up in the Bay around other Panther Party members who had children. Huey P. Newton's son, I guess that came up. He was dead. Different one. It's almost like some of these people, these revolutionaries and people, these hero types for folk. Either the kids are one or two things. Either they're either dead or killed off or whatever, or they're quiet and they're silent and you don't even know they exist. You know, and I guess for Tupac, All Eyes on Me was like, hurry up and put the light on him. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, maybe if the light's shining bright enough, nobody will do nothing to you either. It's like,
Right, me against the world.
yeah, you know, and the whole thing, the whole idea of someone like the son of a revolutionary, of what he was, you know, I mean, come on. I mean, if you take all that into account, this guy, not only was he just being this revolutionary, but he was doing it in cinema, and he was doing it on record. And so now he's inserted himself into all forms of media, and for the judges and DAs who send people like him and his family, people to jail every day, and spend a great deal of time making sure they stay incarcerated, to have this guy, they come home and this guy is on their kid's wall with a poster, they're probably like, what the fuck? So I really don't know. I can't really tell. There's been a lot of different Tupac incidents that occurred, like the shooting of the cops in Atlanta where he shot some off-duty. They shot at him, some off-duty cops in Atlanta. He shot back. They get kicked off the force. He's found innocent. You shoot some cops in Atlanta, some cops somewhere else might shoot you. They're the biggest fraternity in the country. Mm-hmm. And we've seen in recent with how cops can be. So, who knows what the fuck that was, what was all about. But I know that while he was here and the things that he did, it's very powerful. Very powerful. And I was fortunate to be a part of that. And it's all told in DU Days, Adventures in Digital Underground.
Sure. And how much did that make it that much special for you to be able to help document, the rise of Pac and a part of this?
I mean, to me, it was I found it just to be interesting. That's all. That's the best word I can use, because there's already a lot of documentaries on Tupac, and the bottom line is you just hear what they want you to say, and it's usually the same sound bites. I was around when Pac was around, so I know what he was. I knew what he was doing. I remember the incident in the hotel. I remember him getting shot over at the studio. So Tupac was legendary just for being a badass, basically. So it was interesting to hear the innocent times. The kid who's struggling, the kid who wants to get put on, the kid who has talent, the kid's dancing. He's not thugging, he's dancing. So that made it more interesting for me, just to hear the innocent stuff about the kid who's just trying to come up and be, humble, put his ego aside.
And I know it was a fateful day when he passed, but there was kind of a feeling that he had been shot before. He didn't die at the scene, in that car. Right. But what was your first feeling when you heard the news of him passing?
I was, it was weird you said that, because when I heard it and I went to a bar to go get a drink, and when they announced him, everybody was shot, but he died like a week later, or they announced he died a week later. And I was pissed. I was pissed and I was sad at the same time. And I can remember right when they announced, I looked up to the sky, and without trying to sound corny or nothing, I saw a shooting star. I swear, it wasn't the alcohol, and it wasn't the buds. Mm-hmm. That shit actually happened, and it was amazing. But I really was pissed that it happened, because, like I said, I know for myself how many times I quelled different incidents at the time just to, to not allow the shit to go further. And, it's just like, fuck, man, why, just,
unresolved. So, they still don't even have a suspect.
Yeah, they're not going to.
To have that force be silenced by some anonymous sniper over what? A fight in a hotel, or what was it over?
Right, the same thing with John F. Kennedy. They don't know about that one. They don't know about Martin Luther King. They don't know about Malcolm X. They don't know about a lot of this shit that you would think that they would want to know about. So it's obviously somebody knows. It's liable to be the same people. I don't know, but at the end of the day,
Yeah, and then Biggie's gone a few months later.
Fucking A. That's awful. He really was my favorite about, just because, just being a big brother speaks with a lisp. Mm-hmm. I loved how he sounded like he was just getting the words out. It was some hip shit when he was saying.
Yeah, he wasn't the teen model
at all, so he was fly. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, in closing comments, again, what can you say about the film and what people should be prepared for?
I say go buy it when it comes out. Also, that is a piece of entertainment that will just go along with the CD or the 12-inch, or you go back and buy the 12-inch if it gets re-released. But it's something that just needs to be in the history books, but it's on video. That's the biggest thing that I want to put out there. That you can't. It's not changing history. It is history.
And it's fun. Yeah. It's fun. You get to live through an era of hip hop that was fun and entertaining, not just some shit that you sitting there watching. Am I enjoying this? Not that shit. Not like the last. Not like the last hip hop BET Hip Hop Awards. I didn't even. Like, what the fuck? What is
you can be entertained and inspired.
And there you go. And so, and that's what art and music is meant to be.
We really appreciate it. Looking forward to spreading the word. Thank you so much, guys.
All good. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.